So you remember the very first class of part two, I played a little small section of an interview with Carl Jung that took place when he was 84. This was in 1959. He only had 18 months left to live. And I wanted to play you 30 seconds of that clip that we hadn't played before. That are probably the most famous words that he ever spoke on video. But I mean, due to technical difficulties, I am not able to play the video for you tonight. Anyway, so what I'll do though is I'm going to call up my list of readings because I have included that in the first one. So here. Okay, so I wonder if Milton could possibly read this one.
Okay, this is looks like it's excerpted from the YouTube video.
Correct.
John Freeman asks, "What sort of religious upbringing did your father give you?" Jung, "Oh, we were Swiss Reformed." John, "And did he make you attend church regularly?" And Jung, "Oh, well, that was quite natural. Everybody went to church on Sunday." And John, "And did you believe in God?" Jung, "Oh, yes." John, "Do you now believe in God?" Jung, "Now? Difficult to answer. I know. I don't need to believe. I know." That sounds uncertain.
Well, yeah, it's a little more positive. Just difficult to answer. I know. I don't need to believe. I know. So I'm including this because of its increasing relevance to our present circumstances. Jung's self-assured statement is worth dwelling upon. He is clearly differentiating between belief and knowledge. Let me just turn this one thing off here. There we go. In fact, this could be taken as a summary of his point of view concerning religion throughout his life. As we will see, Jung constantly promoted the benefits of knowing God directly through one-on-one experiences, as opposed to relying on second or third-hand reports of him, i.e. God, supplied by others, either through scriptures, dogmatic statements, or personal interactions. In agreement with the Baha'i teachings, Jung disdained the intermediary role of the clergy. From an early age, he sought first-hand gnosis, or wisdom, as a spiritually enriching achievement over and above the belief system of Christianity, or perhaps what we could call churchianity. So let's talk about some of his early experiences. It's simply not possible to discuss all that Jung experienced, thought, and wrote about the subject of religion in an hour-long talk. I have thus selected a few representative highlights that will hopefully give you a clear sense of his position on this complex topic. We might summarize this viewpoint by stating that Jung had an ambivalent relationship with Christianity right from the start of his life. His father was a Protestant minister in the Swiss Reformed Church. In addition, 2 of his uncles on his father's side and 6 members of his mother's family were also ministers. Therefore, he heard many religious conversations, theological discussions, and sermons while growing up. It's hardly surprising, then, that his overtly religious family background would be a major influence on his life and thought. That being said, however, it was not so much the traditional religious input that affected Jung. Soon enough, he would see this as consisting of empty ritual and dogma. No, he was guided much more by a series of overwhelming dreams, visions, and religious dilemmas. These revealed an image of God that was both good and terrible, which led him to feel personally close to God, but with a profoundly disturbing sense of the reality of evil. So let's examine the main incidents bearing on the subject of religion. When he was 3 or 4 years old, Jung had his first memorable dream. As he said in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, it was to preoccupy him for the rest of his life. At the time, he was living with his parents in the vicarage near Laufen Castle in northern Switzerland. Apparently, there's a large meadow behind the vicarage. Okay, so I'm going to need some readers. Hopefully people are up for that. Who would like to read number 2?
Are you speaking to me, Mark?
Anybody in the audience who would
Oh,
like
that's
to
fine.
raise their hand.
I'll gladly do it right now for you.
Okay, let's do that.
In the dream, I was in this meadow. Suddenly, I discovered a dark, rectangular, stone-lined hole in the ground. I had never seen it before. I ran forward curiously and peered down into it. Then I saw a stone stairway leading down. Hesitantly and fearfully, I descended. At the bottom was a doorway with a round arch, closed off by a green curtain. It was a big, heavy curtain of worked stuff like brocade, and it looked very sumptuous. Curious to see what might be hidden behind, I pushed it aside. I saw before me in the dim light a rectangular chamber about 30 feet long. The ceiling was arched and of hewn stone. The floor was laid with flagstones, and in the center a red carpet ran from the entrance to a low platform. On this platform stood a wonderfully rich golden throne. I am not certain, but perhaps a red cushion lay on the seat. It was a magnificent throne, a real king's throne in a fairy tale. Something was standing on it, which I thought at first was a tree trunk, 12 to 15 feet high, and about 1.5 to 2 feet thick. It was a huge thing, reaching almost to the ceiling, but it was of curious composition. It was made of skin and naked flesh, and on top there was something like a rounded head with no face or hair. On the very top of the head was a single eye, gazing motionlessly forward. It was fairly light in the room, although there were no windows and no apparent source of light. Above the head, however, was an aura of brightness. The thing did not move, yet I had the feeling that it might at any moment crawl off the throne like a worm and creep toward me. I was paralyzed with terror. At that moment I heard from outside and above me my mother's... Could I get you to scroll up a bit?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Yeah.
Above my mother's voice, she called out, "Yes, just look at him. This is the man-eater." That intensified my terror still more, and I awoke sweating and scared to death. For many nights afterward, I was afraid to go to sleep, because I feared I might have another dream like that.
So this is a 3 or 4-year-old person having this kind of a dream that he recounted when he was in his 80s. He was haunted by the dream for years and years. He only realized much later that what he had seen was a phallus. It was decades before he understood that it was, in fact, a ritual phallus. Okay, Lisa, here's his explanation of what that meant.
At all events, the phallus of this dream seems to be a subterranean god not to be named, and as such it remained throughout my youth, reappearing whenever anyone spoke too emphatically about Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus never became quite real for me, never quite acceptable, never quite lovable. For again and again, I would think of this underground counterpart, a frightful revelation, which had been accorded me without my seeking it.
Hmm. Okay, thank you. So I just shake my head. I have to find it amazing that a 3-year-old child would have such a profound dream and that he would remember it in such vivid detail 73 years later. Clearly, Jung was to have extraordinary experiences right from the beginning of his life. As we look at this subterranean God dream from our perspective more than 100 years later, I suspect that it illustrates what happens to a concept of God that has endured for several thousand years when it is repressed by an entire society. Because it was, as he says here, a subterranean God not to be named. This was noted by Nietzsche in the mid-1880s through his shocking declaration that God is dead. For Baha'is who passionately believe in the existence of God, hearing this statement may still be deeply upsetting. Okay, so let's go to number 4, and I think Belinda's ready for this one.
Okay. I'm going to read from my paper here.
Okay.
It is astonishing to think that spirit, which plays such a vital role in the civilizing process, has fallen to such ill repute, violence, and pathology. What was celebrated as the pinnacle of cultural achievement is now in a state of decline and threatens the well-being and health of humanity and the world. The highest values thrash around in the darkness, looking for expression. They have become shades in the psychic underworld and are contaminated with other elements of our psychology, such as complexes, instincts, and desires. That's David Tracy, The Darkening Spirit, Young Spirituality and Religion, page 3.
Okay, so this quotation is from David Tacey, who's a professor of literature in Melbourne, Australia, who has written extensively on spirituality, mental health, and society. This is what he looks like. Friendly looking fellow. Tacey asks a question that is not often examined. What effect does such an announcement as Nietzsche's have on ordinary people? Living at a time when Nietzsche's pronouncement was still fresh, Jung was destined to confront the harmful consequences on dozens of individuals' psychological health in intimate detail. Casey concludes his thought-provoking description of the death of God. Now we go to Elizabeth for number 5. This is a straight continuation of this previous one. Oh, you're still muted.
I'm sorry. Spirit is like an angel that has fallen from heaven, having lost its lofty abode after being rejected by humanity. When Nietzsche said, God is dead, he did not mean that God had died of his own accord, but that we had killed him. We are all his murderers, cries Nietzsche's madman, his lantern held aloft. Friedrich Nietzsche, the madman, in The Gay Science, aphorism 125. The immortal ones cannot die, but we can destroy their health and turn them into demons. When we stop believing in the gods, they disappear from awareness. This is registered in mythological terms as the death or murder of the gods. They become dead to us because we have died to them. This is by David Tracy, The Darkening Spirit, page 3.
It's David Tacey. There's no R in his last name.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. So whatever the reason, at this early stage of his life, Jung was granted an unsolicited vision that God was not dead, but had simply gone underground. For decades, Jung wondered where this dream had come from. However, due to the, what he called, strict taboo that hung over all these matters, inherited from my childhood, Jung said exactly nothing about his phallus dream to anyone until he was 65. Portraying God as a phallus emphasizes its tremendous inherent creativity. It also serves to link the spirit with sexuality, a connection that Jung would strive to bring to the surface in many of his later works. It is clear that Jung believed that the disconnection of spirit and sexuality was one of the reasons for the ongoing sterilization of the Christian view of God, leading to its eventual desiccation and death. Tacey offers us an intriguing summary of the overall contributions of Freud and Jung in this next one. Okay, Linda, let's see. And I'm going to ask you to do 7 later in a second.
If the great repressed was sexuality in Freud's time, spirit is the repressed in ours. In the same way that Freudian analysis unearthed our repressed sexuality, Jungian psychology can help us bring spirit to consciousness by showing that more has been smuggled into the experience of sexuality than what belongs there. David Tacey.
Mm-hmm. So to my mind, this particular insight of his is well worth reflecting upon. The repressed in our age isn't sexuality, it's the spirit. And you see that all the time when you try and talk about religion with anybody. The second momentous experience occurred in 1887 when Jung was 11 and living in Basel. Now, he was fully conscious at the time of this experience. So, is this going to be Sherry or Bill? Number 7.
One fine summer day, I came out of school at noon and went to the Cathedral Square. The sky was gloriously blue, the day one of radiant sunshine. The roof of the cathedral glittered in the sun sparkling from a new brightly glazed tile. I was overwhelmed by the beauty of the sight and thought, the world is beautiful and the church is beautiful, and God made all this and sits above it far away in the blue sky on a golden throne. And here came a great hole in my thoughts and a choking sensation. I felt numbed and knew only, don't go on thinking now. Something terrible is coming. Something I do not want to think, something I dare not even approach. Why not? Because I would be committing the most frightful of sins. What is the most terrible sin? Murder? No, it can't be that. The most terrible sin is the sin against the Holy Ghost, which cannot be forgiven. Anyone who commits that sin is damned to hell for all eternity. That would be very sad for my parents, if their only son, to whom they are so attached, should be doomed to eternal damnation. I cannot do that to my parents. All I need to is not go on thinking.
Okay, so he has a sense that whatever's going to happen is beyond the pale, shall we say. He was unable to, I want to show you Basel Cathedral just so you have an idea. Quite the impressive sight. And so this is the square that he was walking when he had this vision in daytime. He was unable to sleep that night and endured 2 days of what he later described as sheer torture. As he struggled to keep the sinful thought from revealing itself to him. Under the circumstances, he couldn't decide what God wanted him to do. Did he want him to sin, as he apparently wanted Adam and Eve to sin in the Garden of Eden? Okay, Laurie, you get to have the fun of reading this next one here, number 8.
God knows that I cannot resist much longer, and he does not help me, although I am on the point of having to commit the unforgivable sin. In his omnipotence, he could easily lift this compulsion from me, but evidently he is not going to. Can it be that he wishes to test my obedience by imposing on me the unusual task of doing everything against my own moral judgment and against the teachings of my religion, and even against his own commandment, something I am resisting with all my strength because I fear eternal damnation? Is it possible that God wishes to see whether I am capable of obeying his will, even though my faith and my reason raise before me the specters of death and hell? That might really be the answer. But these are merely my own thoughts. I may be mistaken. I dare not trust my own reasoning as far as that. I must think it all through once more.
Okay, thank you. Many scholars who recount this visionary experience do not dwell on the internal struggle that Jung experienced at this time. Consequently, they do not always appreciate the full impact the event had on the impressionable youth. Well, Hangame, you get to read the final result of this thing, the revelation.
I thought it over again and arrived at the same conclusion. Obviously, God also desires me to show courage, I thought. If that is so, and I go through with it, then He will give me His grace and illumination. I gathered all my courage, as though I were about to leap forthwith into hellfire, and let the thought come. I saw before me the cathedral, the blue sky. God sits on His golden throne, high above the world, and from under the throne an enormous turd falls upon the sparkling new roof, shatters it, and breaks the walls of the cathedral asunder.
Well, this is what he's talking about, this particular church. So this is the second time he's been faced with an uninvited vision that seriously undermines his faith in the traditional Christian concept of God. For a second time, he is forced to contemplate the source of his experience. Where is this coming from? Okay, so we've run out of readers, so we need to ask again. Anybody who hasn't read yet who would like to?
I can read this one.
Alan, great. Okay.
I just can't find my hand.
Okay, well, no problem. Well, number 10.
The symbolism in my childhood dreams disturbed me terribly. The phallus and that God shat on the church. I wondered, who is exactly speaking that way? Who has such effrontery to portray a phallus so nakedly? Who is speaking such that God shits on his church? So outrageous and disgusting. The voice of the image, the filth bursting down.
Sorry, it's violence. It's the violence of the image.
I'm sorry. The violence of the image, the filth bursting down. I always asked myself if it was not the devil who arranged this. I never doubted that it had been God or the devil who was speaking in this way, and who makes me think it or not think it. I certainly felt that it was not me. I was only 11 years old. But these are the decisive events of my life. It then dawned on me, it is up to me. A problem has been posed to me to which I must give an answer. And who is posing this problem? To this day, no one has answered that question for me. And I knew that no one could at all. I knew that I must answer this myself from my inmost being. I was alone before God, utterly alone. None of my friends would have been able to answer. I never spoke about it with anyone.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What a spot to be in. There is, of course, another possible source of this insoluble problem. Perhaps Jung's own capital S self was already initiating the lifelong process of his individuation. This is a hypothesis worth contemplating. So, because Jung's father was a minister, he gave his son the required instruction for his upcoming confirmation. Jung tells us that this bored him to death. The only concept that interested him was the Trinity, which refers to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Okay, Bonnie, let's see. This is number 11.
One day I was leafing through the catechism, hoping to find something besides the sentimental sounding and usually incomprehensible as well as uninteresting expatriations on Lord Jesus. I came across the paragraph on the Trinity. Here was something that challenged my interest. A oneness, which was simultaneously a threeness. This was a problem that fascinated me because of its inner contradictions. I waited longingly for the moment when we would reach this question. But when we got that far, my father said, "We now come to the Trinity, but we'll skip that, for I really understand nothing of it myself." I admired my father's honesty, but on the other hand, I was profoundly disappointed and said to myself, "There we have it. They know nothing about it, and they don't give it a thought. Then how can I talk about my secret?" Young from Memories, Dreams, and Reflections.
That's great. Thank you. So Jung's long-awaited experience of communion turned out to be a major disappointment as well. Okay, maybe Sherry would like to read number 12.
Suddenly my turn came. I ate the bread. It tasted flat, as I had expected. The wine, of which I took only the smallest sip, was thin and rather sour, plainly not of the best. Then came the final prayer, and the people went out of the church neither depressed nor illumined with joy, but with faces that said, "So that's that." Only gradually, in the course of the following days, did it dawn on me that nothing had happened. I had reached the pinnacle of religious initiation, had expected something, I knew not what, to happen, and nothing at all had happened. I knew that God could do stupendous things to me, things of fire and unearthly light, but this ceremony contained no trace of God, not for me at any rate. To be sure, there had been talk about him, but it had all amounted to no more than words. Among the others, I had noticed nothing of the vast despair, the overpowering elation and outpouring of grace, which for me constituted the essence of God. I had observed no sign of communion, of union becoming one with.
Hey, thank you. This was the final straw. Following this empty experience, Jung turned his back on the Christian church for good. Okay, Joey, I'm going to ask you to do 13 and 14 in a minute.
Slowly, I came to understand that this communion had been a fatal experience for me. It had proved hollow. More than that, it had proved to be a total loss. I knew I would never again be able to participate in this ceremony. Why? That is not religion at all, I thought. It is the absence of God. The church is a place I should not go to. It is not life. It is not life which is there, but death. Young Memories and Dreams, Reflections.
So Jung suddenly realized that he was an outsider because of his intensely personal connection with God. Strangely enough. Okay, so that brings us to his further statement in number 14.
What about the failure of communion, or what about the failure of communion to affect me? What that my own fault? I had prepared for it in all earnestness, had hoped for an experience of grace and illumination, and nothing had happened. God had been absent. For God's sake, I now found myself cut off from that church and from my father's and everybody else's faith, insofar as they all represented the Christian religion. I was an outsider. This knowledge filled me with sadness, which was to overshadow all the years until the time I entered the university. Young Memories, Dreams, Reflections.
Okay. What a early life he had. His disappointment led to his rejection of the traditional and conventional religion of his father and community. Accompanied only by his direct inner experiences, Jung experienced an almost unendurable loneliness, as he put it. Later, he said that his one great achievement during those years was that he resisted the temptation to talk about these troubling experiences with anyone. Okay. We need some more readers. I need somebody to do 15 for me. Ah, there's Milton again. Thank you. And maybe 16 in a second. Okay.
Thus, the pattern of my relationship to the world was already prefigured. Today, as then, I am a solitary, because I know things and must hint at things which other people do not know, and usually do not even want to know.
So another issue which tormented the youthful Jung was the presence of evil in the world. He was consumed with the question of whether or not evil, or the devil, existed within God himself. So Milton, that's number 16.
If God is the highest good, why is this world, his creation, so imperfect, so corrupt, so pitiable? Obviously, it has been infected and thrown into confusion by the devil, I thought. But the devil, too, was a creature of God. He seemed to be highly important after all.
When he was 16, Jung's mother said, "You must read Goethe's Faust one of these days." When he did, it proved to be something of a revelation for the young man. And Belinda, that's in number 17. And I'll ask you to do 18 in a minute, too.
18. It seems
17.
Oh, 17. Okay. Here at last I thought as someone who takes the devil seriously and even concludes a blood pact with the adversary who has the power to frustrate God's plan to make a perfect. At last I found confirmation that there were or had been people who saw evil and its universal power, and more important, the mysterious role it played in delivering man from darkness and suffering. To that extent, Goethe became in my eyes a prophet. You want me to read the next one?
In a minute. Yeah. So at the same time, however, he was unimpressed by the way Goethe dismissed Mephistopheles, his devilish character, at the end of the story. He felt it had been a mere trick by a bit of jiggery pokery that was too theological, too frivolous, and irresponsible a strategy for Jung's liking. He believed that Goethe, like so many other authors, had fallen for those cunning devices by which evil is rendered innocuous. So now that we're familiar with the pivotal experiences concerning religion that Jung had during his youth, let's look at how they impacted his later ideas. As early as 1913, Jung recognized the differences between himself and Freud were primarily differences in religious attitude. As one of Jung's longtime correspondents put it, and this is number 18, Belinda.
It seems that whereas for Freud, religion is a symptom of psychological disease, for Jung, The absence of religion is at the root of all adult psychological disease.
Interesting. The absence of religion is the cause, not religion itself. So, as we have seen in a previous class, Jung's Symbols of Transformation was a groundbreaking work which laid the foundations for Jung's later theoretical constructions.
This one? No. Okay.
Oh, sorry, do you want to mute? There you go. Thank you. It also contained the concepts of his theory of the archetypes and the collective unconscious in seed form. Given the depth of the subject matter of this work and the ground that was broken, perhaps it's no surprise that its publication severed the relationship between Freud and Jung. Looking back on it in 1929, Jung elaborated on the differences he perceived between his view and that of Freud. Okay, so that would be number 19, Alan.
Because of my differences, I'm accused of mysticism. I do not, however, hold myself responsible for the fact that man has always and everywhere spontaneously developed a religious function, and that the human psyche from time immemorial has been shot through with religious feeling and ideas. This father complex of Freud's, defended with such stubbornness and oversensitivity, is a religious function misunderstood, a piece of mysticism expressed in terms of biological and family relationships. As for Freud's concept of the superego, it is a furtive attempt to smuggle the time-honored image of Jehovah in the dress of psychological theory. For my part, I prefer to call things by the names under which they have always been known.
Oh. Okay, nice. From this quotation, we can plainly see why Jung and Freud parted ways, even though they observed similar symptoms in their patients. Their ways of approaching and dealing with them led to very different conclusions. For Jung, libido was rooted in the archetypes, not the drives of the sexual libido. His goal wasn't to divinize the libido, or libido, I guess it is, but rather to see that which humans have traditionally projected outwards as divine in terms of psychology. He aims to turn people's attention from the God out there to a steadily increasing sense of the God within. Okay, so let's see, we've got number 20. Sorry, go ahead, please.
I have been accused of deifying the soul. Not that I, but God himself have deified it. I did not attribute a religious function to the soul. I merely produced the facts which prove that the soul possesses a religious function. I did not invent or insinuate this function. It produces itself of its own accord, without being prompted thereto by any opinions or suggestions of mine. With a truly tragic delusion, these theologians, such as Martin Buber, fail to see that it is not a matter of proving the existence of the light, but of blind people who do not know that their eyes could see. Carl Jung, Psychology and Alchemy.
So then Jung goes on, and I'm hoping you'll do this one as well, Elizabeth, goes on to expound the very theme we have selected for our course in psychological terms. And that's number 21.
It is high time we realize that it is pointless to praise the light and preach it if nobody can see it. It's much more needful to teach the people the art of seeing, for it is obvious that far too many people are incapable of establishing a connection between the sacred figures and their own psyche. They cannot see to what extent the equivalent images are lying dormant in their own unconscious. In order to facilitate this inner vision, we must first clear the way for the faculty of seeing. How is this to be done without psychology? that is without making contact with the psyche, is frankly beyond my comprehension.
Phew. Very nice. So here, Jung is arguing for a restoration of one-on-one relations with the immanent God in the face of Christianity's centuries-long, single-minded focus on the transcendent God. So, this useful-looking man is Peter Kingsley. The following passage from the British mystic, philosopher, and scholar Peter Kingsley, who was born in 1953, includes the most accurate one-line description of Jung's understanding of the term psychology I have ever read. And Jack is going to read that one for us. That's number 22.
If the theologian really believes in the almighty power of God on the one hand and the validity of dogma on the other, why then does he not trust God to speak in the soul? Why this fear of psychology? In other words, here we have his own statement of what psychology is, as well as why it matters so much. It's the art or science of learning to listen to the voice of God speaking in the human soul. Far from the soul existing in Jung's mind as some psychological alternative to religion or God, it's the only possible pathway to both. This is why for him, soul is wisdom. Sophia in Greek, sapientia in Latin. Inside the Red Book, period. Inside the Red Book itself, he painted the spirit of wisdom, page 155, just as he wanted her to be seen, standing tall, veiled but magnificent, in a crowded church. Peter Kingsley, Catafalque, pages 277 to 278.
And I showed this to you last week. There she is, wisdom. Instead of the cross with Jesus hanging there, bleeding all over everything. What an interesting change. So the sentence that I want you all to memorize is that psychology is the art or science of learning to listen to the voice of God speaking in the human soul. That is gorgeous. As we learned in class 7, wisdom or Sophia is the highest stage of anima development in Jung's mature thought. This is the voice of God speaking within the human soul, to which Jung believes people must attune themselves. In Baha'i terms, this is the trust of God hidden deep inside every single human being, which Jung recommends we learn to connect with. The degree of achievement of this communication with the soul is in direct proportion to the personal effort each individual exerts. If Jung is right that psychology is the art or science of learning to listen to the voice of God speaking in the human soul, how does this impact the role of religion? From my research, I've concluded that Jung has profound respect for religious systems, even as he criticizes them. He is more interested in changing religion to adjust to the soul than in destroying religion and replacing it with psychology. In his view, psychology is not adequate for our cultural or personal needs. However, he believes that the soul needs a living religion in which all the yearnings and hopes of the soul are adequately expressed. From his point of view, humanity is still a long way from achieving this goal. In the English-speaking world, Jung seems to have little in common with psychologists or philosophers, but much in common with poets and writers. There are real parallels between Jung's ideas and those of T.S. Eliot, D.H. Lawrence, and W.B. Yeats. All consider that the traditional sources of light have fled from the world, and that if light is to be found, it must be drawn from below, meaning the unconscious, the body, the emotions, and the shadow. Both Yeats and Jung believe that our current human darkness is aglow with a radiance that asks to be befriended. Okay, Linda, that's number 23.
This calls for a radical reconstruction of the image of the sacred. It is as if the shadow of the Judeo-Christian order is upon us, and we are forced to respond in some way. There is a distinctly luciferic glow to the light that informs and illuminates contemporary experience. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious."
Ooh, that's another one to memorize. Making the darkness conscious. I think we're all faced with enough darkness around, and it would be wonderful if we could make some progress on lightening it. Jung argues that the image of God wants to acquire a darker hue to recover its power and integrity. Part of the reason why God died was because it became divorced from reality. It was too light, too good, too perfect. Western religion made God so transcendent and pure that he became irrelevant to human existence. The West turned God into a static ego ideal which must be shattered so we can establish a new relationship with spirit. The forces of good and evil hold equal sway in the psyche and the cosmos. A God that becomes too divorced from this turbulent wholeness loses credibility. Jung believes that the psyche is involved in a process of self-correction and is attempting to make God more credible so the soul can recover its proper orientation. The ecology of the soul and creation is thrown out of balance when humanity is no longer connected to the Creator. This darkening of the God image is occurring independently of our awareness. It is thrust on us by the psyche and is one of the primary archetypal shifts of our time. Okay, is it Sherry this time or Bill? That's number 24.
We are living in what the Greeks called the kairos, the right moment for a metamorphosis of the gods, of the fundamental principles and symbols. This peculiarity of our time, which is certainly not of our conscious choosing, is the expression of the unconscious man within us who is changing.
Okay. We could say that the image of God is transforming itself after a long period of being fixed in humanly manufactured images. The reality of God is refusing to remain static or to be locked inside the forms of outdated religion. Instead, God is springing to new life and surprising us with its attempts to appear natural rather than supernatural, instinctual rather than elevated, holistic rather than perfect. God is trying to regain its connection with nature, having been severed from it by a long process of idealization that placed him above the world and outside the range of our experience. It is clear that if Jung is religious, he is not conventionally so. He comes close to being spiritual but not religious. However, this is too simple a description for Jung, since he was intensely religious in the sense of wanting to understand religion from the inside, and feeling urged, even called, to alter it to suit changes in the spiritual landscape. Jung has something profoundly new to offer religious discourse. Judging him by the standards of theology misses the point of his prophetic contributions. Jung wanted to renew the Western spirit, but not revive its old forms. His spiritual work is an attempt to dream onward the Judeo-Christian tradition with prophetic imagination and seemingly heretical intent. We can accuse Christianity of arrested development if we are determined to excuse our own shortcomings. But I do not wish to make the mistake of blaming religion for something that is due mainly to human incompetence. I am speaking, therefore, not of the deepest and best understanding of Christianity, but of the superficialities and disastrous misunderstandings that are plain for all to see. The demand made by the imitation of Christ, that we should follow the ideal and seek to become like it, ought logically to have the result of developing and exalting the inner man. In actual fact, however, the ideal has been turned by superficial and formalistic believers into an external object of worship that prevents it from reaching down into the depths of the psyche and giving the latter a wholeness in keeping with the ideal. Accordingly, the divine mediator stands outside as an image, while man remains fragmentary and untouched in the deepest part of himself. Christ can indeed be imitated, even to the point of stigmatization, without the imitator coming anywhere near the ideal or its meaning. It is not a question of an imitation that leaves a man unchanged and makes him into a mere artifact. For Jung, it's a case of realizing the ideal on one's own account, in one's own individual life. So the last insight I want to share with you is from Jung relating to religion involves differentiating between the typical modes of Western and Eastern religion. Okay, so we have 2 more readings to go. Who's going to step up and do those?
I can't. Okay. You got
Lisa and then Jack. Okay, how's that? Well, Lisa for 25.
Western man is held in thrall by the 10,000 things. He sees only particulars. He is ego-bound and thing-bound, and unaware of the deep root of all being. Eastern man, on the other hand, experiences the world of particulars, and even his own ego, like a dream. He is rooted essentially in the ground, which attracts him so powerfully that his relations with the world are relativized to a degree that is often incomprehensible to us. The Western attitude, with its emphasis on the object, tends to fix the ideal, Christ, in its outward aspect, and thus to rob it of its mysterious relation to the inner man. It is this prejudice, for instance, which impels the Protestant interpreters of the Bible to interpret entos omun, referring to the kingdom of God, as among you, instead of within you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. The verse Jung is referring to is Luke 17:20-21. In this passage, Jung is contrasting the Western emphasis on the transcendent image of God with the Eastern stress on the immanent image of God. He further elaborates in the following paragraph, and that's Jack's turn here.
Christ, the ideal, took upon himself the sins of the world. But if the ideal is wholly outside, then the sins of the individual are also outside. And consequently, he is more of a fragment than ever, since such superficial misunderstanding conveniently enables him, quite literally, to cast his sins upon Christ, and thus to evade his deepest responsibilities, which is contrary to the spirit of Christianity. If the supreme value, Christ, and the supreme negation, sin, are outside, then the soul is void, its highest and lowest are missing. The Eastern attitude, more particularly the Indian, is the other way about. Everything highest and lowest is in the transcendental subject. Accordingly, the significance of the Atman, the self, is heightened beyond all bounds. But with Western man, the value of the self sinks to zero, hence the universal depreciation of the soul in the West. Carl Gustav Jung, Psychology and Alchemy, paragraph 9.
Okay. So that's an overview of Jung and religion. Next week, we're going to explore a few of the many images of God that Jung was confronted by in the Red Book, possessing names and features that I'm sure will challenge the limits of our understanding and open-mindedness. So, fun, fun, fun. Well, let me just close this off so that we can see each other again, or I can see you. There we go. Phew. What a life this man had. Incredible dreams. Okay, David Oak. You're muted at the moment, but I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Yes, I guess there's 2 points. First of all, in 18, where Jung was saying that religion, oh gosh, I wish I could quote it.
Just a second, I'll look it up again.
Sure.
18.
But the absence of religion leads people to mental illness or psychological illness.
Yeah,
when I read that, I thought, isn't this a contradiction of what the theme that was running through your presentation of his rejection of formal religion?
Now, just a second. You have to be careful about what it was he was rejecting. He saw a lot of healing properties associated with religions, but he felt that they had, through the emphasis on the exterior nature of Jesus, etc., they had lost that ability to impact people in a positive way over the centuries.
Yes.
But, so he's not dead set against formal religion. He feels that it needs to be reconfigured around the soul.
There's something Abdul Baha said. He said, some people love the light and some people love the lamp. And it says, true religion is to the love of the light in whatever lamp you may find it.
Yes.
And what I saw when I saw those quotes and heard comments was very much along that line, that he saw a reality within religion but well, I guess you could say he saw people being a follower of the lamp and forgetting the light.
Yes, indeed. That's a very nice connection that you've made.
Yeah. But anyway, I expected him to come to an opposite conclusion, is that maybe mental illness or psychological problems were a result of forgetting the light. And sometimes being involved with formalized religion can help you forget the light, because you substitute forms and outward symbols or whatever for an inner reality.
Yeah, I think he would agree with you 100%.
Oh, okay.
And I think what he's really saying is that people suffer because they don't have access to the light.
Yes. Which leads me to the other point I wanted to raise, this idea of the source of the light. I was just astonished at this is a theme that runs throughout the hidden words. Thou art my lamp and my light is in thee. Get thou from it thy radiance and seek none other than me. And I wish I could quote them all, but that theme runs through the hidden words. Standing within thee, mighty powerful. Yes, you'll see me standing within me, the mighty powerful and self-subsisting, and particularly the heart, your spiritual heart, that is the center of your being. And he says, everything I have given to you except the human heart. He says, this is my home. He says, you have given my home to another than me. And whenever the manifestation of my holiness sought his own abode, a stranger he found there. I was just thinking, when you were going through those quotes, I was just thinking of these hidden words. And I had a feeling that somewhere in the middle there is the solution to that question.
As to where the light comes from, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, he would later say, I think, towards the end of his life, that it was the self with a capital S that is directly connected with the powers that be, if you like.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, it has a really tight relationship. So that's your source of light. It comes through that. And that's what's been driving him all the way through his experiences in the Red Book, although he doesn't realize it at first. But it's bringing him along. It's providing experiences which are going to shape him in positive ways. They're allowing him to develop and to grow out of the difficulties he had when there was no light in his life.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought I'd raise that.
Yeah, point. I think it's excellent that you're connecting that, the Baha'i faith, with what he's doing.
Yes,
so
I thought it was exactly the same thing. At least from my reading, my interpretation of the hidden words, that's the center of the issue. Is that light comes from within you.
Yeah, exactly right. He would, I think, have no problem with what you're saying at all.
Okay.
I really don't think he would. Okay. Jack, what are you thinking about right now?
No, I was just thinking about what David said. Of course, yes, the light comes from within the human heart, but we're not the source of it. God is the source of it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say a couple of things, Mark. Kingsley's definition of psychology as listening to the voice of God within the human soul. Was that it, if I remember correctly?
Yeah.
That's also a very accurate definition of mysticism, wouldn't you say?
I would. Very
well, that's what struck me. So if that's true, then, psychology for Jung, as he's teaching it, is also very mystical thing. By the way, there are a lot of people in our society who would argue just the reverse, that religion has caused a lot of illness in society. And we've got to think, and I think that's true, that the critics of religion have a point because of the way that religion has been practiced. So we have to think profoundly about how religion has been misused and caused so many people to reject it. That's something that we have to think deeply about. Of course, as Baha'is, we have a whole different view of what religion is and how it evolves in history and so on. But I think it's rather tragic that the churches and organized religion have done such a terrible job and alienated so many people through dogmatism, through fear of hell and God, sin, and God knows what all, you know. So while religion is, of course, a source of health and wealth and well-being, when it's badly taught and badly practiced, it becomes pathological.
You won't get any argument from me on that.
Well, and Abdu'l-Baha does say that religion becomes corrupt, and that's why it has to be renewed with the coming of a new manifestation of God, because it does become corrupt.
Well, and wasn't that such a beautiful image of God dropping a turd on that beautiful cathedral?
Well,
that's his comment on it.
Yeah.
What was that all about? I mean, you got to think deeply, not too deeply maybe about that one as well, but obviously something very repulsive there had entered Jung's mind, right? So what?
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to extend my sympathy to Alan for
reading it.
You not creating it, no, for having to repeat these words.
And Hangame did too.
Yes.
Yeah. I felt badly for you guys, but you know, you're all adults. I thought you could probably handle it.
So, Mark, pardon my English, but what is the turd in your opinion, or in Jung's opinion?
Well, what do you think?
I don't know. It's obviously
the old man took a shit right on top of the cathedral. What else? What could it possibly be?
Is the old man God then?
Yeah. The old version of God.
Yeah.
The Old Testament God.
Oh.
So that's Jehovah.
And yeah.
Okay, so that's Jehovah showing his own disgust with religion, you mean?
Well, with what has been done with religion.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for helping me. That image out.
I thought it was pretty obvious, but
well, no, not to me, because I was so shocked by the image. I didn't know what to...
I thought you might have heard about it before.
Yeah, I did actually. Yes, I did read it before somewhere, but
yeah.
But what it so you think that was God revealing a truth about religion to Jung?
Yeah. I really do.
Not Jung rebelling against religion.
No, he was really upset with that revelation.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't tell anybody about it for a long time.
I can understand why.
Very smart move on his part.
So, Belinda, you had your hand up at one point. You were wanting to say something or ask a question?
Okay, well, Jung was concerned, that quote where he talks about the relationship between religion or lack of religion and mental illnesses. And one of the things I'm a little questioning or confused about here is Jung's understanding of the mental illnesses in his time, and even as late as just shortly before his death, and our understanding of many mental illnesses now. Because we tend to see them now and treat depression, psychosis, bipolar disorders, affective schizoaffective stuff with medications, which allow people to actually have a life. Because what we generally see is if these people do not use medications and leave themselves to just go on, nothing gets better. Everything gets worse progressively. And so I'm just wondering if what Jung is referring to as mental illnesses is something we might describe somewhat differently today. Perhaps Lynette can help us out with this one, but
yeah, I was going to ask if Lynette would comment on this. It's so far out of my field of expertise.
I mean,
oh, there she is. Yeah.
Had to find that symbol. I think one of the things to remember is Jung was very, very aware of the huge range and limitations of people's ability to go deep into the psyche. He would not say that what he experienced and how he processed things, that was for everyone.
Oh God, no.
That's way beyond the majority of people, actually. And so today, the antidote for these massive disturbances, which we've had insane asylums way back 1800s. They were horrible places, but today, and also we've become very materialistic in our thinking. Materialism would say, take this drug, right? Before we would even ask them, have a look at this and see if this is by any chance something you could deal with in a conscious way. And so it's just become a very simple, in a way, a simple antidote to actually a very growing number of disturbances. It's not getting better.
Certainly not. I would comment that someone I know had what might be described as a schizophreniform episode early in life, and dealt with it by framing it as an experience of the absurd. This person reads Camus and things like that, and integrated that experience positively. It didn't stop the mental illness from happening over a course of lifetime, but it did let this person integrate the experience into his life in a relatively positive sense. So,
interesting. Okay, Bill, you're being very patient tonight.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, if I may. The one thing I wanted to know is like, if everybody here is kind of like intellectual and spiritual, and has the multiple dimensions and such as that. And there's like a lot of other people who maybe would like to be that, and they don't even know it. But I'm just wondering, like, if I were to take all of this, and I was talking to someone who wanted to know or had an interest in it, but not a whole lot of, like, they haven't gone to all your stuff and watched the videos too many hours and stuff like that. Is there a way to explain to someone what is the value of connecting to the soul, and what is the process of doing so in a way that can get them started without having to swallow the red book whole.
Well, I don't think I was really advocating that, to tell you the truth, but I know it's a select audience that can confront this particular work. There are many, many books about Jung that are tailor-made for people that you're talking about who are not intellectual, etc. I mean, even his biography is fairly easy for most people to understand, I think. Mm-hmm. And it might whet their interest, as to what is this soul? What does it mean to have an unconscious and things like that? So it might be a good place to start. But I really feel like Lynette should be answering this question, not me.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind is a book called Man and His Symbols. Mm-hmm. Man and His Symbols has one section is Jung, but then his followers were also contributing to that. Marie-Louise France, and I just forget who the others are. But it's written for the layman, and it's full of images, and it clearly describes kind of what that whole field of Jungian thought is. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful book as a starter. Thank you, Belinda.
Yeah. So, and this thing that David pointed out with regard to the hidden words, is that something that you think that can kind of head people in that direction, without really any having to have a lot of consciousness that's in a direction that they're going? At the same time, maybe introduce people to the faith.
And I think the hidden words are an excellent place to start introducing people to the real heart of the faith. Depending on the person, of course, but if their interest is more administrative, you're going to start in a different place, or if it's more historical. But for somebody who, for instance, has a receptivity to the idea that there is a soul and that it communicates positive things to them, that would be the place to start them for sure.
And if I could just ask, I had this thought when we were reading before, like we were talking about Jung was having this thought and he stopped this thought because he didn't want to commit a sin. So I had a couple of issues with that narrative. And one was that it didn't seem like it was really a thought. It was more of like a vision or a dream or something that was happening to him that he. But in general, is it common for people to be able to have a thought and it's linear and it's going someplace? Is it common for people to just say, okay, I'm going to stop right there and come back later and pick up on that, and it's all still there and it flows? And is this something that's unique to Jung, or is this something everybody can do and I just don't know it? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, to me, it's what he's describing is a form of resistance. He senses that it's going to be an ominous experience that's going to be extremely uncomfortable and maybe, throw him outside the faith that he lives in. So he has all his spidey senses are saying, "Oh, don't go there, don't go there." So he is able to say, I don't want to go there. That's enough. I resist it coming in clearly. So he actually has to set aside the resistance in order for it to actually come through. Now, this is a guy that had a very strong will, besides being courageous. So I don't know if other people can do that, but I mean, I'm just reading the material as it's presented by him. So I have to take his word that he could do that, even though he was only 11. So you haven't had instances in your life where you've been able to do that?
Well, there's things like stop things that you like avoid looking at because you don't want to deal with it, that kind of thing. But you don't even think about you're doing you don't even think that you're doing that. It's what happens. It's how you become an ignorant person after a while if you don't get on top of it in some fashion. But to me it's always been one constant stream of thought. I've never really been able to stop thinking. And I just like wondered if people do that, and if so, is that a valuable thing, in general?
Well, may I say just a word about that? One of the things I think that he names is not only the resistance, but this was a compelling thought. That means it's a compulsion. It wasn't just a vision or a dream, but just like it's got its claws around his neck, right? To have him see this, and he did not want to, but it was very compelling. And he tried for days to hold that back. But then finally he thought, I have to give in because it's so compelling. And if we have something in our life that is pushing for consciousness, it will have that feeling of compulsion until we finally have a look at it.
And it's interesting that he had to summon his courage. And he realized that God wanted him to have the courage to be able to see this thing. That's what seemed to undo the knot. Okay. Did you have another question there, Bill, or is that it?
I've taken up more than my allotted.
Oh, come on.
Well, there is one other question.
I thought so. Okay.
So this libido thing, and if you've already covered this and somehow I missed it, wasn't paying attention. So my understanding is that according to Freud, libido was a sexual drive. And according to Jung, libido was this flowing thing that of energy, psychic energy that can be expressed sexually, but it's also could be expressed creatively and emotionally and in other ways.
Yeah.
And so my question is like, if you have a strong libido, does that mean you're automatically strong in all these other areas as well? Or does it mean like that you could be, it's all in, like if you were not like balanced individual, that libido could all go in one direction, like say creativity or sexuality, and you'd be dried up and deserted in the other realms of human nature. What do you think of that?
Sheesh. I think it's possible to have one channel that you feel like you're really good at, and that you put all your energy into it. But I suspect that Jung would say that really you need to be diversifying. You need to look at, what's the opposite of what you're doing? What is the inferior function that you're denying yourself access to by making this your superior function? In his case, thinking. He was not giving any energy to his ability to feel. So in order for him to evolve, he needed to take some of that energy from his superior function and give it to the feeling side and allow it to evolve and grow. So that's a conscious decision, and I guess therapists are able to help people do that. Because sometimes, people are not aware enough of what the issues are to have that recognition that, oh, this is what I need to do. Well, somebody has to help you with that, I suspect. Okay, Jack, you have the final question or comment or whatever.
Well, my comment, Mark, goes along with the discussion, and I want to go back to the image of the cathedral because I think to me it suggests something else.
Okay.
That fits exactly with Jung's psychology, and particularly his idea of the shadow. That we are not to repress, but we are to integrate. So the shocking cathedral image to me suggests that true spirituality goes beyond traditional morality. It involves things that are disturbing, that we don't want to look at.
Mhm.
And as Lynette said, if we don't look at them, if we keep repressing them, they're gonna show up in a very strong way, right, Lynette? That's what you were saying. So to me, that's what it suggests. And this is, I mean, Jung was very courageous in all of this because a lot of so-called religious or spiritual people, they don't want to take a look at this shadow side and these unpleasant images and so on, and just repress them, and then they, they backfire in a lot of different ways. So that image of the cathedral image of Jehovah excreting on his own church, to me, that's one of the things that it suggests, that spirituality means confronting all of reality and trying to make sense of it and integrating from the unconscious to the conscious in order to heal ourselves of things that are disturbing us. So that's the other thing that image suggested to me.
Well, I think you're on the right track. That it can be just that particular topic, or it can be expanded to others beyond it. I think you're quite right there. And I would have a word for you for next week that is abraxas. That is Jung's version of God that includes evil, as we will see. So all that negative side that we're tending to push off by focusing on the transcendent God is needing to be incorporated, as you say, or integrated. And he sums it up with this one image of Abraxas. So that's a teaser for next time.
Mark, does that mean we should all be in psychotherapy?
No, absolutely not. Okay, go ahead, Janet.
I'm going to say back, there was two quotes that you told us to memorize. So somewhere back, there was focus on making sure that you kind of pay attention to the shadow and integrate it. So we've talked a lot about that. There is a great fiction book that deals with that theme so amazingly that would be, I think, maybe was it Bill or Brian who said was looking for sort of a way in for someone? This would be an amazing way in for particularly, well, anybody, but young people for sure. So it's Ursula Le Guin, who was a fiction writer, and she wrote in the 70s. Fantasy and some sci-fi. But the fantasy books that I got when I was a teenager were the Earth Sea trilogy, the 3 books. And in the first one, it's about a wizard, but he's a young wizard. And when he's young and still a little bit boastful, a little bit, full of himself, he sort of opens up the door between the worlds a little bit too much, and this shadow comes into our world and it starts chasing him. So he's flying from it all the time until he gets to a point where he has to turn around and start chasing the shadow and try to figure out what it is and who it is. It is a fantastic book about paying attention to our shadow. It's very, very good. So that's the first of 3 books in the Ursula Le Guin trilogy, which is called Earth Sea Trilogy, written in 1976, 77, 78. But I just reread it because I read it with my son. I thought it's so timely and it's so psychologically based. It's really about the psychology. And in fact, the other 2 are great too, but they have slightly different themes. So that one is about the shadow. So I really recommend it as a fiction book, which speaks worlds, in a symbolic way about what we're talking about.
What's their last name again?
The author's name is Ursula, her first name, and her last name is Le Guin. So it's LE capital Yuin, I think.
Yeah. And what's the title of the book again?
It's a trilogy. So the trilogy is called the Earth Sea Trilogy. But I don't know the individual titles of the 3 books. There's tome 1, 2, and 3. They're all good. That first one's really, the theme is really about the shadow. Yeah, and they're fabulous, like just beautifully written.
She's absolutely right.
You could give them to a 14-year-old and they would get a really great introduction to psychology and the idea of the shadow through that book. And it's accessible, but it's also a fictional kind of empathetic way for anyone of any age to get in touch with those themes, but through that wonderful medium of fiction, which can teach us quite a lot, if you're open to it. Yeah, I really
wonderful.
Thanks on that.
Well, Linda, you know all about this.
Of course I do, bookseller.
And you read every book in the store, right?
No. But yeah, you get to, as a bookseller, like a librarian, you get to a sense of what people want, and you know how to lead them to it. The nice thing about a used bookstore is that it has something of just about everything.
Okay, folks, we're a little over time tonight, but I think it was a great discussion.
So when did you Jung bookstore? A Jungian bookstore?
No. A used bookstore.
Bookstore, oh yes.
Oh, sorry. The used bookstore that I used to work for has shut down recently. And very sadly, for a lot of reasons. But yeah, it was fabulous. We had so many books there, so many things that every day something would come in, something in every box would be some kind of treasure. Yeah.
Okay, folks, I guess we're going to have to say goodnight. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Linda.
We'll see you in 1 week. And happy Nowruz to the Baha'is in the group.
Happy Nowruz, happy equinox, and let's hope to God it means something weather-wise.
Yes.
Me, I've had it.
Yeah, it's warming up, Belinda, on the weekend a little bit.
I just want to see the end of the blankety blank snow.
Bye, everybody.
See you later, Ellen.